There's a lot of jealousy in that scene, especially in London, tiny community, which was probably another reason why I moved to the States once I saw the scale of New York and the country. It was like, hang on, this is way bigger than Shoreditch. Soccer's in my head, 90 minutes. I started pulling and baking and putting these ingredients into it on paper in my bedroom and created this like black and white 90-minute format that became Secret Wars, the art battle. So I met the Colossal lads, I suppose 15, 16 years ago, and saw what they were doing in New York and thought, well, we should do that in the UK. Semi-joking to a magazine 20 years ago saying, I want to bring art back to the Olympics. And I've always kind of said that just in my head and to friends. Everyone's always said I'm crazy. And then fast forward to the Paris Olympics, Pharrell says it to the press and it pours fuel on the fire. The most important and special part to me is the seeing a city through the lens of a local creative. It's like money can't buy that. So we're thinking about.
Never Work a Day talks to folks that are pivoting their lives to follow their passions. We talk about pitfalls, misadventures, hilarious and heartbreaking, meet the outstanding individuals, and learn about their continuing journey. I'm your host, Nikki Frankel, purveyor of platforms and creator of play spaces, and I'm so excited to bring you the stories of these extraordinary individuals.
Welcome to another episode of Never Work a Day. I'm your host, Robert Morris. Today, we will be talking to Terry Guy, the founder of Secret Walls. Terry's work centers on live drawing battles, competitive, timed art events where two teams of artists face a battle using black markers on white canvas, walls with no sketches or pencils in front of a live audience that often decides the winner. It's about building community while creating access for artists. Hello, Terry. How you doing?
Yeah, good, mate. Long time. It's been a minute. How are you?
Good. It's been a hot second. All right. I met you back in was it 2012? I think it was just before you were moving to New York, and you crashed my place, Airbnb, and I met you. I probably was introduced to you by your former partner, Andy Kelly. Secret Walls had been probably going about 6 or 7 years at that time. Yeah, it already felt, larger than life. When did you realize it had become like a movement?
I think once we landed in America, and I think I'm just trying to. My brain's fuzzy. It's been 20 years of it. Yes, our 20th birthday this year. But I think our first show in the States was 2009 in New York for Mark Echo. He was the first person to take a gamble on us, and I think that's when we realised that we could actually make money as creatives in this weird street art world. Still very underground, but yeah, he treated us like a celebrity VIP and put us up in a nice place, and we were, Escalades chauffeured around town, and we did this really cool private kind of battle for his celebrity friends and industry friends at the Complex Media Echo HQ in Manhattan.
Cool. Looking back on it now, what do you remember about the energy that you created in that kind of New York kind of scene that kind of led you to, to moving and making it kind of work over here? Was there one or two defining moments that said, "Oh, geez, this is working well. I like it over here"? And because you originally launched it in Shoreditch with 16 artists, what was the real kind of spark there?
Yeah, I mean, the spark was kind of, I suppose the pressure like creates diamonds kind of cliche kind of quote, but like I was struggling, come out of university with an animation degree. What's that, the year 2002, around that time. And I was applying for jobs, throwing CVs all over town in London and going knocking on doors in all my favorite companies and Soho, Sky Sports, like every TV and creative company I could think of, and I wasn't given opportunity. So it was hard. It was like working 3 part-time jobs, trying to pay the rent, eating beans on toast, just kind of struggling to make it in an expensive city like London. And I think that pressure started to really force me to think a little bit harder and dig a little bit deeper and maybe go to places that were outside of my comfort zone. So I ended up, I'm a kid from the countryside. So for the first 18 years from the Isle of Wight, which is like a Victorian, country kind of resort that's famous for like, I suppose, old school festivals like the Woodstock of England. But I threw myself into a b-boy battle night, and I was really into hip hop and graffiti, but I'd never really seen it with my own eyes. And this was around, I suppose I was about 20 at the time. And it exposed me to the real elements of hip hop and then graffiti on the walls in the shadows. And that night kind of changed everything, because I saw the energy, I saw what a battle looked like in a freestyle moment for dance and rap. And then something in my head told me, why not flip the script and put the art on stage? And because the art seems to be in the background, and it wasn't very valued. It was like 20 quid. Banksy hadn't exploded by this point, right? So it's like pre-Banksy.
Yeah.
So that was the original spark, and we kind of created this collective called Monorex. And that was just us like hanging out, trying to figure out how to like hustle together. And I just had this interest in like live performance. I'm not sure where that came from, but I'm a big sports guy, I'm a big soccer guy. So I think as I was watching like Warriors and reading comics like Secret Wars comic, the Marvel comic, where all the characters get stuck to a planet to battle it out. Soccer's in my head, 90 minutes. I started pulling and baking and putting these ingredients on paper in my bedroom, and created this like black and white 90-minute format that became Secret Wars, the art battle. And it just worked from the first show. It was like hundreds of people turned up, and we somehow just hit it like first time, and it just kept getting bigger each month that we hosted another show. But it was never meant to be 20 years of shows. It was meant to just be a one-off tournament.
So you never thought it would last 20 years, and here we are, 20 years, it's still going strong. What were those first battles actually feel like? Was it pure chaos? Was it more organized? Was there a lot of tension between the artists, and what kind of results did that kind of tension manifest?
Yeah, it was like a sweatbox underground fight club kind of feeling, which is what we wanted. Shoulder to shoulder, hot lights, artists up ladders in a tiny bar in this like underground Shoreditch space. Way before Shoreditch was like shiny and nice. This was kind of an edgy, dangerous kind of East London, but that was all the grit that we wanted, and that's for sure. And I think even the concept and the kind of freestyle nature of it, where you're asking artists to paint live on a white wall with black paint, no white paint, no sketches, no pencils, in front of hundreds of semi-drunk, screaming people, that creates, all kinds of fun challenges and, mistakes in real time, which is all part of the beauty of the show. Like, make a mistake and you have to kind of work with it. But yeah, the energy was high. It's like it felt to me like being in like an underground boxing, like fight club kind of arena. Yeah.
Also probably like being at a football match where you have like fans, the fans kind of make up a big part of the game. They're chanting, they're jeering, or they're kind of really getting into it. So I would imagine it would have that kind of energy, that live performance energy.
Yeah, that terrace energy. Sure. We were trying to pull that in, and we still are to this day. I feel like sometimes some of our shows are a little bit glossier than they used to be, but that's just the nature of the beast of scaling. But because of the stages we're offered, but I always kind of try to bring it back to the original kind of version of ourselves, because those were like really raw. and just exciting, So in as much as we can, as much theatre as possible, and new ways to bring new energy. It's always fun.
So would you say there was much difference between those early days in the UK and then once you moved to the States and you started doing these live events in the States? Was there kind of a different energy with the crowd, what the crowd brought, what the artists brought over here? How would you compare the two?
Yeah, it was 4 years before we got to America, because it was 2006 when we founded it. So yeah, 3 years in. Morex was 2004, which is why I said that. But so by the time we got to the States, we kind of had something that we knew was pretty strong, because we'd already been around the UK on like a little mini tour and kind of ironed out the kinks. But I suppose once we got to America, the Echo show was very unique because it was a high profile kind of event. It was Zoo York versus Monorex, so we had basically America versus England, and it was like a really no holds barred kind of visual battle. Like they were really going for the Brits, like the Zoo York designers, because Echo had just bought Zoo York at that time. The Zoo York designers drew like the British artists portraits of them with their teeth kind of like half missing, and like commenting on British teeth not being in great condition, like because
right.
All the rest. There was some like crazy. There was loads of cool little references, like little digs, like a proper battle where artists are like kind of in real time are looking at each other's canvas and like reacting and trying to take the mickey out of each other in real time to get another laugh from the crowd. But yeah, it transferred pretty easily. Even after that show, when we kept coming back, I think actually, and the reason why I stayed in America, and I've been here now a long time, but I think the fandom is unrivaled. Obviously the Brits bring that kind of what you said, that kind of maybe that terrorist kind of energy, that old like football, soccer energy. But I think once we got here, the like scale that we could take it, and the fandom, and the stages and the wall sizes, everything got bigger because everything in America is bigger. So it was just like we were traveling and just getting bigger and bigger opportunities, and that just keeps happening. Even in 2 weeks, I'll be at a rock festival at Sonic Temple in Columbus, Ohio, with Public Enemy and Marilyn Manson and Megadeth and all these other bands, and we're going to have our own stage inside this huge 4-day festival. It's kind of bonkers, it just keeps getting bigger, and also we keep exposing it to new audiences, like a rock festival. That's a first for us.
Yeah, I remember when you were here, I collaborated with you guys on one build. It was my studio, Sunbunker. We worked together with Secret Walls on a. It was a sponsored build. I think it was one of your brands, might have been Chase or one of those. But you were building out. You're building out some big canvases for some local artists, and they were going to go in a kind of commercial setting. So I guess it also brought like a little bit of commercial success as well in working with brands, and you worked with a lot of sports brands as well, and took you to several different countries. What do you think there's any kind of tension there between the Secret Walls event and then also the commercial aspect? Do they feed into each other? Does one dilute the other? Does it in itself create any kind of tension or momentum? I'm sure it helps the artists as well, having that kind of commercial heft behind certain projects.
Yeah, no. In the early days, like I said, pre-Banksy at the very start, street art that term didn't even exist. So we were operating in a weird space where people were doodling characters and doing things, but there wasn't a street art mural scene like there is now. You have mural festivals all over the world, and artists able to make money in many different ways. Back then, it was really hard to monetize, and graffiti was seen as vandalism. And I think in the culture community, in the bars and galleries that I was hanging out in, there was this big hot kind of debate about what street art was turning into and the early roots of it, and how we as well, like we were just one of many up and make a few dollars along the way. I think some artists loved it, some artists hated it. It was kind of conflicting emotions of this is selling out, So I used to have a lot of like kind of conversations with friends and like new artists that I might have just met in the bar, and we would be talking about like, is it not selling out when you work with a brand? And my definition of selling out is when you go against all of your morals and do something that doesn't make any sense to the mission that you're on and the purpose. But if Reebok or Echo, which was our first two kind of brand collaborations, if they come and give us a check and fly us to Barcelona or New York, which is what happened, and pay us to back something that we could dream, the things that we've already dreamed up, but they encourage us to go bigger, to a bigger audience, then for me, that's a win-win, because all the artists are getting paid properly for the first time, and that's kind of where we found our space. And I think over time, that conversation disappeared, because all of a sudden, if you fast forward 20 years, you've got all the OG graffiti heads that 20 years ago would have been complaining about it, and now all collaborating with car brands and doing cool stuff, And I think we've just matured into a proper industry, and artists have realised their potential. But back then, it was kind of everyone was also arguing, because there was whoever was making the money, people were jealous as well. So there was a lot of jealousy in that scene, especially in London, tiny community, which was probably another reason why I moved to the States. Once I saw the scale of New York and the country, it was like, hang on, this is way bigger than Shoreditch. This is kind of infinite. The talent, the crowds, the stages, and the kind of brand collabs.
Right. When you came to new cities, how would you say you made Secret Walls feel kind of local and authentic rather than parachuted in? And then was there any kind of places that really surprised you, like creatively, that kind of blew you away, like on your global adventures?
Yeah. So I suppose starting there, 20 years, and we're doing some like infographics at the moment for our birthday. We've done over 100 cities, I think 52 countries. We just added Bermuda. I was in Bermuda 2 weeks ago. So yeah, we keep exporting the show to new territories, and I think it's always different. Every time we take it to a new country, there's always a slightly different twist to it, because what we do and what we shout is support your local artist. It's hand painted on our shutters, it's on our studio walls, on our t-shirts, jackets. So my kind of secret sauce to, I think, why the concept has survived 20 years is not only is it's a very simple battle format that people can just discover for the first time and understand and kind of get hooked on. And I've seen all age ranges and demographics get into it, whether you like art or not. But the other thing is we tag in local artists. So when I went to Bermuda, 2 of the 4 were local, and then the other 2 were kind of, I suppose, stars like that were flowing in to add extra, weight to the show. So that's usually the way we do it. And I think because of that, answering your question, as we travel and we meet these new local artists, when we arrive in, whether it's Tokyo, Bermuda, or Malmo, Sweden, typically we're taken on this journey for the first couple of days where we're showing the culture, the community. We get toured around the city through the lens of local creatives, and that's, for me, that's the kind of that's the stuff that no one sees on social media. That for me is kind of is the real gold, the golden kind of.
How do you discover these artists? Is it kind of word of mouth? Do you put a local, like an open collage? Is it just artists that you've found on maybe Instagram or some other social media sites? I mean, especially when you're traveling to new places, how are you discovering new artists?
Yeah, well, back in the day, again, 20 years ago, it was pre-social media, because I think MySpace was just starting when we were doing those first shows. So I remember it was paper flyers and guerrilla marketing and just hammering, around town, word of mouth, old school, which I missed that. I was talking about that the other day. I kind of missed the old school word of mouth kind of version of it. But then once social media came about, that exploded. So these days, artists find us through all these different channels. Instagram is one of our big ones. We also find artists through Instagram. I'm always clicking and DMing new people. Yesterday, I was talking to 2 new artists in Portland for a show. I'm just always on the hunt. Like, I see myself as like a talent scout, as much as a founder and producer. But we have an online sheet on our website where people can apply. So it's always open. So people will drop into that list. That's just a Google database. So when I'm traveling, I'll search that. And I think it goes into Airtable as well. And I kind of can search it through styles and, location, etc. So we're always searching all of those lists. And then there's still word of mouth. When we are planning a city, we're always asking the locals, like, who else should we be considering here? Like, are we missing someone on this stage? Making sure we have female, male representation. This isn't just a graffiti battle anymore. It started that way, but these days it's a full-on, all art styles kind of welcome. And we figured, as we grew in America, we realized that you can have a fine artist go up against a graffiti artist. So trying to always mix those styles up, always trying to mix up and find that balance on stage is really important.
So typically, like I'm also curious about the kind of the structure of the business. And let's say you have the secret wall battles that happen. Typically, when you're going to new cities, are you typically going in with brand sponsorships or venue sponsorships or kind of collaborating with events like music events and that kind of stuff, or do you have a separate kind of program where it's just kind of secret walls? You have your own kind of system. Maybe you could talk about that a little bit, because I'm just curious about the commercial side versus the actual entity itself and how it's actually run.
It's definitely a long story, and it's across a few companies, but I'll try and kind of touch on it. It's like, at the start, I formed Monorex, which was the collective. That then birthed Secret Wars that turned into Walls. We had to change the name because of the comic. That became so big, obviously, which is what we're always talking about here. That became so big that I had to register its own entity and build a team, because it started. So, we did the European tours, and we've done the 2 or 3 US tours, and then all these global stops. So that became its own thing. But Monorex kind of evolved into a thing called High Rise Murals, which basically was a copy inspiration of Colossal Media that I started in the UK. So I met the Colossal lads, I suppose 15, 16 years ago, and saw what they were doing in New York and thought, well, we should do that in the UK. But there was no billboard space. So I started doing that illegally. We were doing kind of guerrilla brand ads, and I was doing that on the side of Secret Walls. And really, the short story is that was the profit that we made from those hand painted ads that we were running around the UK doing, I poured back into my passion project, which was Secret Walls, which at the time really wasn't making a lot of money. It was going on tour, but we were just really scraping together through tickets and merch. We're just about able to clear our costs. But then over time, Secret Walls kind of became the star of the show, and that's all I do now. It's full-time focus. But I suppose answering the question in today, kind of set up, lots of sponsors. We have deals that are 2-year deals with Posca Markers, Monster Energy. They back us for a long length of time. They look after us at the studio. We do a lot of side programming from workshops and the rest, not just battles. So it's kind of investing in our little world, our community in LA. We get a lot of brands that reach out to do one-off events. So I've got an endless list of brands, that have paid us to come in and do a one-off show. Same for festivals like Sonic Temple, where we're going next. That's just we're kind of hired like a band. So it's like we have a booking agent who gets us the best deal and the biggest stage, and we build a show around that budget. So we're kind of we're able to make money many ways. And then obviously tickets and merch is now kind of a decent rev maker. And then we also sell the art sometimes. So yeah, lots of ways.
So, I mean, after doing it for 20 years and celebrating your 20th this year, does it ever, or does it still feel like work? And when do you feel most alive doing it?
Yeah, it's definitely not, doesn't feel like a job, which is why, I love kind of waking up and just every day is different. And it's just hanging out with artists, talent, and traveling with these guys. It doesn't get old. It never gets boring. My body's definitely getting old, and I realized that my pains in my back are not the same, as the younger version of myself, where we'd go like to all the after parties. So definitely trying to figure out how to adapt physically, but the show just keeps getting bigger. It just keeps inspiring us to think, how else can we kind of reach new audiences? How do we now build school programs and kind of get this in schools, which we're doing a lot of that at the moment quietly. And the next 10 years is already like being mapped out in our heads, the next 10, 20 years of what can we do that makes an impact and a purpose and really hammers home the legacy. The support your local artists and how we can get that next gen in, so much more to do while the kind of bus or the tour bus keeps going. I'm actually trying to take myself out of the touring shows.
Right.
Those are obviously the money makers. That's the kind of the star of the show. But I think over the next couple of years, your people are seeing me less on the road, and I'll be focused more on the kind of academy, grassroots, community side, because I really want to work through my 40s on that legacy project and try to develop other little, I suppose, spin-offs to what Secret Wolves is, opportunities that we have.
Recently we had Chantel Martin on Never Work a Day, and I had listened to your podcast on her series called What's the Point? And she had mentioned that, or you had mentioned in that episode, that you were looking into doing an Olympic kind of version of Secret Walls. What would be the process of having or turning Secret Walls into like an Olympic event or something like a live drawing battle? Is there like a history kind of precedent of a live battle at the Olympics way back when?
Yeah, so there is. Yeah, art used to be in the Olympics when it was more of a cultural event. I think in the 30s to the early 40s, you could win a gold medal for sculptural creation, design. You could win a gold medal for canvas painting, and I think spoken word, and there was a few others. They all got taken out in the 40s there. So I kind of found this article. It's on, there's a Smithsonian piece on it there's not much online to find, but Smithsonian have got a good article. I found that at the very start, and I remember semi-joking to a magazine 20 years ago saying, I want to bring art back to the Olympics. And I've always kind of said that just in my head and to friends. Everyone's always said I'm crazy. And then fast forward to the Paris Olympics, Pharrell says it to the press, and it pours fuel on the fire, because obviously he is like the main guy that everybody follows. But literally within a few weeks, we had like the LA28 committee, the cultural kind of creative team, asking for a tour of our studio and wanting to get to know our story. And we're talking to them currently about how Secret Wolves can build an Olympic tournament around the city during that time. That will happen, whether they back it or not. We're also talking to a lot of brands about that as well. But we'll do that, ourselves, just to realize that dream. But that was something I said from the start. So now it's coming to our doorstep. Our studio's 20 minutes from the Colosseum. There's no chance we're just going to sit on the sidelines. So we will make that happen. And then, B-Boy's got in the Olympics. There's other sports that I think to myself, you know, even with the b-boy stuff, it's like if they can get in, surely with a little bit more brain kind of power and focus and connection, maybe we have a chance of getting in a future Olympics. Maybe I'm crazy, maybe, you know, but I still like to be in that kind of crazy zone of like, maybe, you know, maybe in 4 or 5 Olympics time they might give us a shot, because I would argue that it takes just as much talent and maybe they burn more calories physically on stage than a b-boy anyway. So it is a sport to me in my head. It already is.
Brilliant. So like when you see artists working under pressure and they're I guess constrained by time, and they're kind of, you know, rushing that last, you know, that last line, that last hatch, that last thing. What does that kind of bring to you, kind of creatively? What do you take away from it? What do you see there? Because you're right in the midst of it. What does it mean to you?
Yeah, every battle is so different because you're always mixing up. You know, there's a 1-on-1 version, there's a 3-on-3, a 6-on-6, a 10-on-10, depending on wall size. So everything's always different. Even if an artist has battled 10 times, you're always going to see a new kind of visual plan from them. And then obviously once you add them into a team, it's normally teams that have never met before, which I always try and do to kind of make it harder, anything to make it harder. And I give them maybe about 4 hours worth of prep time, you know, to just talk and sketch over a beer. So they can't bring that sketch on stage, but yeah, there should be something baked in their heads, but it never goes to plan, right? Because it's live and someone cracks under pressure.
So the teamwork involves a little bit more strategy and planning, as opposed to 100%. The one-on-one battles.
Yeah, and I'm seeing artists like train like boxers. Like, you know, we see artists on social media tagging us in saying, hey, I'm training up for my show on Saturday, and they will be speed painting in their bedroom or studio and timing themselves because they've never done it before. So they're like just trying to get that confidence up. So there is a training, mental, physical training side to it as well. Like every artist has a different approach. Some will have a plan fully baked. Others will. Chantel, you know, she's never battled actually, but a good friend, and maybe I'm going to manifest it on this podcast. But I've always said to Chantel, I need her on the next battle stage. So she would kill it. You know, she would destroy it. She's got too much talent.
Right. Is there like a time? Is there like a sweet spot in the time? You know, the time constraints, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Is there something that you see kind of typically working, like creativity? You know, in terms of creativity.
So Andy and I, Andy Kelly, who also helped me kind of build these battles up in the early days, we typically would coach the artist before the show. I always do a pep talk. We always like get them in a circle and kind of pump everybody up. But I try and give people tips and take it or leave it. Every artist has a different approach. Some will just want to draw a pretty picture or do something that is true to their kind of artwork that you see on a canvas. Others will actually want to battle, and we don't really tell them what to do. So it's kind of like, go do what you think is best. That's going to win the crowd and the judge votes. But my personal favorites is when artists react in real time or have a battle plan and save the kind of punchline till the very end. So they will like save a space on the canvas and drop a punchline visually or through words that takes a dig at the other side and kind of brings that concept together. I think the more an artist can kind of draw the piece in a way that doesn't allow the fans to understand everything until the very end, I think those are always the winning pieces for me, because people are like, you know, they see it at the end and it all just makes sense, and I just think the emotions just run really high. So that's my favorite way of doing it. But that was just maybe an old school approach that used to happen more often. So I'm always kind of pushing artists to think about it that way, you know.
Nice. So that you're in the 20th year now, are you planning anything to celebrate, or kind of any kind of 20th anniversary kind of secret wall edition or party, or how are you kind of marking the occasion or the year?
Yeah. So It's a World Cup summer, which again, another big sporting event here across the country, but in LA. So we're doing a lot of World Cup projects on the side, non-battle, at our studio because we have this huge campus. So I've kind of originally had this like June date. Kind of wanted to do a mural festival of sorts that also had a battle and like dinner series and panels. So I'm working on a 7-day program that will have all of that celebrates and inspires folks across a week. I had it down for June and then I realized World Cup was starting to turn into a monster. So I keep pushing it back. So I don't have a date yet because I keep kicking it back, but it's probably going to end up being post World Cup, end of July now. But that just gives me more time to plan something bigger. So yeah, you'd think mini mural festival, 20 artists painting live, food trucks, panels, programs, workshops, pop-up kind of drops, merch, and then anything else we can get kind of that makes sense. So we'll be doing a lot in that kind of period just to celebrate 20 years, and then also announce some of our big plans for what's next. Like when I talk about kind of side projects, like we announced on the Chantel podcast a year ago that we were opening a coffee shop in our campus, which for me was another way to attract fans and artists to the space on a regular day. And that's a year old. We're having our 1-year birthday on Sunday.
Oh,
yeah, so we've learned a lot there, and that continues to grow.
so did you partner with a roaster, or are you doing that in-house? How does that work? Is that merch that you're selling as well? Is that the coffee bean plus clothing merch, or and you're probably doing art merch as well, I would imagine.
Yeah, all of the above. Yeah, we built a retail space in there, put an arcade machine in there that plays all the retro games. It's a Polycade. It's got 200 games from the old, my childhood. Good coffee. Yeah, custom shirts, custom beans in custom bags, and still working on and adding to it. But it's been a small success in its first year. There's obviously been growing pains as we've gone through this crazy new world that we're kind of waking up to every day. So there's been ups and downs, but it's been a good addition. And there's some other stuff coming down the line, maybe one that I can exclusively drop on this podcast that we've not really said out loud yet. But yeah, some fun stuff coming up.
You have a lot of traffic, like car traffic, passing by your campus or your building.
Yeah.
Is it like, do you get like a lot of foot traffic, or is it mainly kind of cars stopping by?
It's cars really. Yeah, it's cars, and we're in the center of town. We're like Koreatown, but it's not a foot traffic kind of area that you would, it's very local. So apparently 70,000 cars, according to city data, go past our building every day. So a lot of cars. We have murals facing the streets, and that's our free advertisement.
Yeah. So after you setting up the coffee shop, has that changed your business model significantly? Does it make you kind of more kind of on a day-to-day basis, dealing with customers and orders and all that kind of stuff? Does it make you kind of a more of a retail brand as well, or is it just another part of it?
Yeah,
another part of the overall business strategy.
Yeah, luckily I'm not on the front lines there too often. We did partner with a coffee shop that already has established businesses, so this is kind of a 50-50 venture. So luckily on the food and bev side, that's them kind of doing what they know best. We just curate visually and program. I am in there a lot. I use it as an office, so I'm always in there just hanging out and meeting people. But yeah, don't have to deal with too much of the day-to-day, which is great. But it's selfishly, I built it for ourselves because we needed a space to work in, and then I realized that artists were always just popping in and hanging out at the studio. So it was like, well, why not just create a little coffee shop and sell some stuff,
Would you say it's niche to that community, or is it something you want to expand on or bring to other places?
Yeah, we're in talks about taking it on tour. So that's an exclusive that we haven't said out loud, but there are talks about bringing the concept to the next Secret Wars tour. So currently a US tour would be a battle and a workshop and a dinner as we fly into each city, but now it could be those three as well as a little pop-up coffee merch kind of 24-hour activation, and in my head it's find the coolest coffee shop in Chicago, New York, and independent, and collaborate with them and kind of work in that space for a 24-hour period. But we're just talking to a few people about what that could look like for the next tour, which is next year. So
yeah. Is there a Secret Walls or a version of Secret Walls that you haven't built yet that you really want to build, or you've been thinking about but just haven't gotten around to yet?
So outside of the World Cup and kind of the Olympic concept that we spoke about, and also what I've realized is Secret Walls is more than a battle, and I think the artist community told me that as I was traveling on the last tour. I realized that it was the special. I was just asking people what they liked about it because I was wondering if it was all about battles, but actually what I learned was people wanted to just be close to the studio, whether it be a dinner series, a panel, a workshop, or a battle. People just like the kind of low barrier to entry, kind of connection points, like networking, safe space. So just creating space and rooms for folks to come and hang. And that's kind of why the coffee shop kind of grew from that. But I just want to continue developing more concepts around, I suppose, that kind of creative hospitality, if you like. And I think there's a few different things in my head that I'd like to explore, from kind of like a global retreat, like where these are just crazy ideas on paper right now, but we're talking to a company about like kind of traveling as a crew of like 25 with basically 20 tickets being kind of up for grabs for fans to join 5 to 10 artists on the road to Tokyo, for example. And we take 7 days to go. What I was talking about at the start, I think the most important and special part to me is the seeing a city through the lens of a local creative. It's like money can't buy that. So we're thinking about Secret Walls in different ways like that. That's kind of just growing and learning and experiencing new things together.
So it's would that be like something that you would organize with people who wanted to travel with you guys, almost like a vacation package or something like of that nature?
Yeah, so that's happened unofficially over the tours. Fans would follow us around Europe, but we never had any packages. They were just trying to find out where we were at, just like a band again. People just wanted to keep coming to the next show and stay in the hotel that we were at. So I just started thinking about it differently. It's like, well, there's a couple of companies that curate travel packages, like VIP packages, that we can bespokely edit, and take people on a journey. So yeah, fun stuff like that. These are all just dreams, but it's things that we already do. I can see it being interesting and valuable to certain people. It's definitely a niche, but this is all the fun, weird stuff that I want to play with as I kind of hit my mid-40s.
I definitely think the tourism angle is niche, and there are a lot of people that would be interested in that.
Yeah, I mean, the other one is just a retreat, because there's a lot of artists struggling with mental health and just the finances of the world that we live in, and people losing studios. And we already offer free space at our venue for artists to come and create. If they need space, we've got it. But I think a little retreat is in our heads as well. Like, the easiest one would be a Joshua retreat, because that's close to where we are here. So we might try that as well. Go and just do a long weekend and kind of have big conversations with artists that we love and respect, big and small, and kind of empower each other and trade secrets and processes and all this stuff. Because I hear it all the time. People want it, they need it. We need to stick together and support each other as the world gets more stressful and expensive.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a kind of a feeling that with all the conflict going on, with all the all the uncertainty, especially, I mean, the artists feel it probably maybe first, or can definitely express it, pretty well. So if you could talk to a younger Terry, starting out a journey, what would you tell him?
There was definitely other paths I could have taken with my degree to have a safer 9 to 5, but that definitely isn't me. So I've done everything. I've just followed my heart, and my gut and my passion, and my parents thought it was crazy, but I kind of just, the first 10 years was a struggle, but ultimately it developed into something. We created our own space, and it doesn't feel like a job. It's a lifestyle. So I wouldn't really change any of it. I don't know if I'd have much advice for younger me. I traveled a lot. I met a lot of people. I think I did. So far I've done all the things ahead of schedule in my brain. So there was the one regret, weird, funny story was that Marc Ecko show in 2009. I was only a kid with no money, and I remember Ecko gave me 30 minutes over a cup of coffee or tea or whatever, and I was sat in his office, and he's like, at the time, like a hip hop billionaire, and he said, I've got a bit of advice for you guys. If you want to make some money, go buy this thing called Bitcoin. It's on the crypto black market, and no one knew what Bitcoin was then. And I was like, I wrote it in my little black book. I put Marc Ecko says Bitcoin 2009, and then got the weird URL that he said you had to trade through. And he said, if you got $100, go get it, because it was in the hundreds of dollars at that point.
Yeah.
And, I didn't do it. And I found that book the other day in a storage unit, and I was tracking the Bitcoin price to that moment in time. And I was like, if I'd have had anything, that would have been life changing, and kicked myself for that. But I suppose I didn't have the dollars, and I didn't trust the black market. But Marc Ecko told me he was hundreds of thousands of dollars was poured into it at that moment. So I'm sure he did okay, but I unfortunately didn't take the advice.
So I guess on that note, you would say, look back on your notebooks more frequently, or, revisit your sketchbooks, or,
or listen to successful people. That, again, he was the most successful person I'd met at that point in time, alongside some of his friends that were in the room. But I should have just taken that advice and not questioned it, and done everything I could to make it happen. But for whatever reason, my busy, brain, or kind of, I was in a different world then. I was just trying to survive. So it was a luxury. But yeah, that's the one funny little edit I would make. Like Back to the Future, I'd go back in time and say, go get this thing that they told you to get. When he gets that, was it that gambling book, right, for the baseball and stuff?
Right. What would you say? I mean, going forward, what would you say is going to keep you going for the next 20 years? Because you're going to be probably doing this for the next 20 years, possibly.
Yeah, I'm preparing myself for another 20. I got some other international ventures and side projects, side quests. So I think I'm just trying to get in better physical shape this year, knowing that the pains and the aches are different. So I'm mentally, physically trying to just get a little bit sharper. But I don't know if that answers the question, but I'm there's a lot.
That's fine.
There's a lot on this year. We've got already a lot of projects all the way to the end of the year, and we're a very small team, so sometimes I feel quite overwhelmed and stressed myself. I feel the same emotions that everyday artists and folks feel. So trying to learn how to take breaths and meditate a little bit, even though I'm not very good at all that stuff, but take a walk.
Brilliant, Terry. Thank you so much for coming on to Never Work a Day. I think that pretty much wraps it. Thanks a million, Terry.
Never Work a Day is produced and created by Preview Media. Our team includes Nikki Frankel as executive producer, Stefan Vlasky and Nishal Small are our social media managers, and Jasmine Jackson is our show editor. Thank you for listening. Please take care of yourself and those around you.